Here is such an example. This is telling us that if we are feeding one sprinkler, we're going to need a pipe that is 15 millimeters in diameter. If we are feeding two sprinklers, we're going to need a 20 millimeter diameter pipe. 3 sprinklers will be 25, 4 will be 32, 5 will be 40, 6 sprinklers will be 50, 7 sprinklers will be 65 in diameter. If we're feeding 8 sprinklers, we're going to need an 80 millimeter diameter pipe. Then any number of sprinklers from 8 to 15, we're going to need a 100 millimeter diameter pipe. And lastly, anything over 15, so if we're feeding anything over than 15 sprinklers, we're going to need a 150 millimeter diameter pipe. So if we look at this example here on the right, this diagram, we can see here that we've got pipes feeding from upstream here at this point, downstream feeding these sprinklers. If we count on this around in the red box, we've got 15 sprinklers here. So going by this code here on the left, we're going to need a pipe of 150 millimeters in diameter up until this point where it's feeding 15. If we then break it down, we've got 12 sprinkler heads here. So this pipe segment's going to need to be 100 diameter. We've then got 8 sprinkler heads here. So this segment of pipe is going to need to be 80 millimeters in diameter. And lastly, we've got 4 sprinkler heads on the end here. So this segment of piping is going to need to be 32 millimeters in diameter. And so on and so forth. You can work your way through, keep going downstream until you've sized all of the pipe work. So let's see now how we can apply this logic to our sprinkler pipe layout in the model. Let's expand the 3D view, and for this exercise we'll work in the 3D view exclusively. So going from our code, we know that if we're feeding anything more than 15 sprinkler heads, we need a 150 diameter pipe. So I can see here that if I select these sprinkler heads like so, I know that I have 4, 8, 12, 13, 14, 15 sprinkler heads here. So I'm going to need a 150 diameter pipe to this point, as I'm feeding more than 15 sprinkler heads from this point onwards, coming from the upstream pipe. So I can zoom in here. I can select my pipe work and the fittings. To this point, and I can change and make sure that the diameter is in fact 150. If I move along downstream to this next segment of pipe, I can see that this segment is feeding 4, 8, 12 sprinkler heads in total. So I know that this segment of pipe, along with this fitting, needs to be 100 mm in diameter. So I can come up to the options bar here and I can change it to 100. And the pipe will change in diameter. And notice while I am manually changing the diameter of these pipes, Revit is automatically resizing and adjusting the layout so that everything stays connected. So it's somewhat automatic as I am manually changing these sizes. Let's keep moving downstream. If we come to the next segment of pipe here, we can see that it is feeding 8 sprinklers in total. So we know that this is going to have to be 80 diameter. I can select it along with the cross fitting, and from the options bar I can change it to 80. And the pipe will resize accordingly. And lastly, come up to the last section of main pipe run here. This segment is feeding 4 sprinkler heads. So this pipe is going to need to be 32. So I can select it once again and the fitting, and come up to my options bar and change that diameter to 32. We can now see that we have effectively resized the main pipe run going to the last T section here. Let's now have a look at the branches. If we have a look at the branches on the left here, we can see that each of these branches is feeding 3, then 2, then 1 sprinkler head. So going by our code, we know that these pipes are going to need to be 25, 20, and 15 respectively. So I can go ahead and I can select my pipe and the T-fitting to this point on this branch, and I can come up to the options bar and let's change this to 25. You'll see the pipe diameter change accordingly and the transitions will be put in. Let's get this next piece and the T-fitting, and because this is feeding 2 sprinklers, we know this needs to be 20, so we'll come up to the options bar, change that to 20. And then we can see that this pipe here was already 15, so there's a transition piece already in there, and it's 15 right down to the sprinkler head, so that's fine. So let's just work our way through and change all of these ones, and I can do them all at the same time for the same sizes. I can hold my control key down and select all the pieces in one go. I can now change all of these to 25. I can then select the next segment of these branches and the T's. Make sure I've got them all selected, and I can change this diameter to 20, and all of the rest should be fine at 15. All that's left is these 3 branches on the right. Now we know that each of these is serving only 1 sprinkler each, so they need to be 15. And if we interrogate one of these pipes, we can see that again they are already set to 15. So these are okay as they are. So this is an effective way that fire protection designers can resize pipe work in Revit. Although it is essentially a manual task, as I mentioned, the fact that Revit will adjust and alter the entire network as you work makes the process somewhat automated.